Hey, security boss, how you doing there?
I'm doing fine. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when
Okay.
you're talking, we can hear you. We heard something
Thank you for
before.
joining us.
Go ahead. Thank you for
Okay.
joining us.
Well, listen, I'm just hearing so much here tonight after 1 a.m. in the morning. I decided to come Cam, well, not
Oh,
Cam
you're
up, but
on.
come
I
up.
forget. She's different Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm behind. I'm in front
Yes.
of y'all. I'm in front of y'all. But
Yeah.
listen, D, you are actually right. Happiness is a choice, and you can be choose to be happy in your growing pains
Yes.
because growing pains is what a requirement is
Yes. It's a
while
building.
you're married.
Absolutely.
When you're married, you will go through something because not both people come into the marriage socially mature.
Right.
And that's a part of being married.
Right.
It is not a prison. And the payoff for it is a successful marriage.
Yes.
I am so happy being married that I would not spend one day, I would not choose to spend one day single. I promise you.
Right.
Now, if something happened to my husband, of course, I wouldn't have a choice. But to make a choice in it, I mean, I could, short of him beating me, I'm going to be in this marriage.
Okay.
And we might have to kill each other at that point.
Uh-oh.
But we're not, I'm serious. I'm serious. It's not, I don't have a choice in this thing. It's married to the day I die. I would
Here's the
not
thing.
want to be,
How many years y'all been married?
we've been married 26, it'll be 27 this year.
That
I've
took
been married over half of my life.
right. So that took a level of you all came to that understanding together. A lot of these relationships have not even gotten off the ground. You know what I mean? Let alone make it that far. And
But
that,
I was,
They had
but
to
I
get
was,
to that point. I don't
but
think
I
they
was
started out that
25.
way.
Right. I was
They
25
had
when
their
I got
growing
married.
pains.
but look at the time frame. Look at the time though. 25 then and 25 now. Two totally different societies.
Well, no, I'm not. That doesn't matter. I'm gonna tell you the key to this thing. The
It kind
key,
of
and
does
you
though.
actually said it. The key is to take it seriously. When I
Absolutely.
made when I made the vows, I was serious about them because I did not want to disappoint the creator, not my husband.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I'm saying is that our society does not reflect that attitude at this current moment.
I don't know that. I don't know that to be true. I don't think we push them there. I think we talk more negative about being married instead of how to be married for real.
And that's what I'm saying. Your
Because we always give
society
them a way out. We
25,
always talking about how to get out of it instead of
right.
how to make it work.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Your society at 25 is different than being 25 right now.
You say that, but I was still 25. I still had the maturity of a 25-year-old, which may not be any different.
You
The
weren't
times may be different
right.
as far as the access in the virtual and electronics.
That
But
makes it unfortunately that is a huge factor right now.
well,
Unfortunately.
I still had a 25-year-old mind though. I still was immature.
Your options, okay, like I'm gonna just say it like this. My boys, they are growing in this technological world, right? I'm 39, so I knew life before cell phones were a thing. They've come into the world being this way and social media being this way, so they don't know what life was like prior to that. Just like somebody from the 70s or the 60s, they wouldn't know the pressures of or the world has shrunk and we have more options. So people are not so inclined to have that thought process of, okay, when I get married, this is a serious thing, because people are basing reality off of media and TV and fake news and all this other stuff that they see, and they're thinking that that's reality versus what you saw, which was probably a lot healthier than what the average 25-year-old is seeing now. Because I'm in the middle.
It depends on their environment. It depends on their environment because my daughter is days away from getting married and she's 29 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not only that,
she's
Genesis,
not going into it thinking that this is going to be a
get divorced.
short-term thing.
Right. But
it's
still
and she's going to be with him
what I'm
forever.
saying is that the divorce rate, I'm not talking about these individual cases. I'm talking about as an overall, right? Our numbers of divorce have skyrocketed.
I think that says a lot about the influences in their life.
Exactly.
If you have positive influences or positive role models or people speaking life,
right?
And
what I'm saying is we're literally saying the same thing, because right now the media is not perpetuating that.
We don't care about the media. We're talking about you. We're talking about Genesis. We're talking about myself. I'm saying to you that we have an opportunity to tell individuals how to do it right. Because listen, I don't care how many people get divorced. They're not happy being single. So even if you choose the divorce, you're not happy being alone. So I would say give them an option of how to be married. Show them how to do it, because it's not easy. It's easy to be divorced, but it's hard to be single. That's why we have so much deletion. That's why there's so much selfishness. So if we can do the opposite, or even just share with them that it can work and not that it won't, then we can get a better outcome, especially as a Black community.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, because that was the whole purpose of the show, was that we need to, we can put the spotlight on the problems, but now we need to figure out how to infuse the love.
Figure out the way.
I believe we're saying the same thing, personally. I'm just saying I think the challenges are a little bit different. That's all. And that's why
we have to give them strategies to overcome.
Yeah, and that's why
those challenges.
No, but even you were saying you couldn't pay me. I don't want to take it worse to be in this prison. That's why I said no prison.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
You said something about being a marriage is a prison.
No, I didn't. That's not what I said. I said that men are choosing toxicity and they need to break free of that prison. Marriage is not a prison. No, I'm saying being in a toxic relationship is a mental prison, because you're choosing to be in something that's not healthy for you.
Okay, but when you say, okay, why is it, okay, you also said this. Okay, if it's toxic, it's probably because somebody, okay, what you're saying, this is my point I'm trying to make. Nobody's perfect. Right. We all come into these relationships with our dysfunctions.
Absolutely.
The thing is, if your mate needs help, if you don't see it before you marry them, and you do marry them, you want to make sure that they get that help. The idea is not to run away from that relationship, it's running towards that relationship, as long as it's not abusive.
Right.
And you try to make sure.
I'm talking about a viable relationship that you can work on. When I talked about the prison, I'm talking about toxic relationships that do not need to be together.
Okay, so what makes a relationship toxic?
When you have two people that shouldn't be together. Like I said before, the girl that I talked about, she was with this guy for 7 years, knew that he was not going to change, knew that she was miserable. He wasn't anything that she wanted at all. And the only accolade she had was that they were still together. That was it. But she married him. He was the same person that she married. So it was something about him that allowed her to marry him. She just needed to find that place. And it's not easy. A lot of people, when they get married these days, they barely know themselves and what makes them happy. And they're just holding on to a relationship for the sake of holding on to it. And if I'm listening to the men correctly, they have not been encouraged to really find out who they are, or that they even matter in a relationship, and so they'll just deal with stuff. This whole conversation stemmed from a male's perspective of just dealing with a toxic relationship, and that's their definition of toxic. Okay, that they'll put up with not being happy or not feeling as though that they matter in the relationship. And what I'm saying is, find your happy, and then find someone that you can spend the rest of your life with. What Black Man Unfiltered said was that a lot of those men were in relationships with women that they would love to walk away from, but they choose not to. And what I was saying is, you are putting yourself in a mental prison when you do that. If you are in a relationship that you know is not healthy for you, I'm not going to sit here and advocate and say just deal with it. I'm not. I'm going to say, I'm not saying you have made that decision in your mind that this is not healthy for you and that it is toxic, you do have an option of choosing you. That's what I'm saying.
But I think they should explore, they should exhaust all options before they get to that point.
Oh, I'm sure they have. What the original statement was, how many of you all,
therapists, psychologists, whoever, elders.
Great. But
being toxic,
would you walk away from your relationship? And all I was saying is that if you are at that point where you know that you would rather leave because it's that bad, and we're going to assume that they did exhaust all of that, but they're still willing to stick around knowing that they're not happy, I'm not going to tell my daughter that, and I'm not going to tell my son that.
Okay, but happiness is just, like you said, it's a choice. Right. You can choose to be happy, but being toxic is just a talking point. We all go through something. We all go through something at some point in time that we can call toxic, dysfunction, selfishness, all of that. It's very selfish to walk away from a relationship where you found a man to be somewhat inviting enough to marry.
But we weren't talking about a woman and a man. We were talking about the man standpoint. So I'm going to direct you to Black Men Unfiltered, because all I was saying to him was, as a man, you matter too. That's all I was saying. So I'm gonna direct you to him.
So let me ask you this, security boss. But I know the answer, but I think for the audience that don't know you, in your marriage of 27 years, what are your deal breakers?
At this point, I don't have any. Going into my marriage, it was, of course, abuse and sexual affairs, immorality. But at this point, I don't have any.
Right.
Going in as a 25-year-old, those are the things you say. But once you learn what marriage is about, once you go through those dysfunctional times, once you grow up and you get beyond yourself, then you realize that it's more to being married than your happiness. It gets to be so much more than this you being happy. It's just greater than that. And then for me, of course, I always say this, me being married was about the covenant that I made to my father, God the Father, versus my husband. I'm committed to him. And see, I don't want to disappoint. I don't want to be out there uncovered. I don't want to be out there making rash decisions because I'm not happy. I want to be covered, and whatever I got to go through to do that, I want someone to be able to identify with me and say, look, babe, you off today, or what's going on, have this conversation, and vice versa. But again, I do appreciate my Black man, and I do appreciate Black men. So I'm always lifting and uplifting, because I do know it's tough out here. I do know the world is hard. I know that. I realize that. But again, this is me later. I had to grow up to get all that. And, I thank the Lord that my husband was willing to grow up with me, because we did become one, and we're going through that.
Here, I am pro-marriage. Okay. What I'm saying is I'm pro-marriage to someone that is on the same page as I am. Okay. Because I'm saying, as a 39-year-old person who was raised the way that I was and saw the world that I saw it, there were different factors that play in my viewpoint. And to be able to get to a point of saying relationships are a choice. If you see that this is, if someone is being abusive, I'm never going to advocate for someone to stay in something like that. I'm just not.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. But there is divorce, but that's not something that God would like us to do. But if you must, and that's what the Word of God says, if you must, you need to have that piece of paper. But that's not what that He advocates for us to do.
Well,
but
if I understand the Bible correctly, it said that there were situations where you can justifiably. It says in the Bible that these are the reasons why you can walk away from marriage if you choose to stay. If you choose to, this is what you're going to get more of, but you do have the option of leaving. Abuse is, of course, abuse can come in all different types of forms. Neglect, verbal, emotional, physical, those are things that if a person feels like that's their hard no that they can't deal with, then yes, by all means.
I think you said exactly what I just said. It does say you can, but it's frowned upon. But if you must is actually the words that I read. If you must, then you must do it the proper way. So that would be the laws of the land. So I agree with you on that. And like I just said, immorality, sexual immorality and or abuse would be for me, but that is how it used to be. But I'm just saying, we always looking for ways out and not speaking on how healthy it can be to be within. But that's just me. And that's just what I promote. And I'm just, that's what I'm saying. I just.
Yeah. I mean, because the purpose of this, like I said, was to figure out a way to infuse love back into and for people to understand that we're on the same page.
And what do you, let me ask you guys this, the ladies.
Hang on one second, Black man, because Estella joined us again. We want to welcome her back to the show. And we got to make sure we get her point, because she had a point that she wanted to make on the previous segment when she was in. So make sure we get Estella in.
It's gone now. I've been listening, and I'm like just trying to keep up. Like I'm a Gemini Mercury, so I'm just like, let me just keep going with it. I think I came back up to agree with Security Boss. Pleasure to be on with you. I wanted to agree with her to a point that was made when we talked about the generation now, and she was saying like, well, I was still 25, and I want to actually agree with you on that as someone who has not been married, but has been 25 and been in situations where it was like, what am I doing in this situation? Like, why am I with this dude? Why am I putting up with this? Like, do you love yourself? Like, I don't care what time we live in. I don't care how much technology has evolved or devolved, in my opinion, honestly. But that's a whole nother conversation. However, times change and things change throughout time. People in humanity, I have a firm belief that it's pretty much the same. Like a lion is going to be a lion, a human is going to be a human, a bear is going to be a bear. There's certain things that you go through, and as far as maturing in your human experience, and you may grow through it at one age or another age. But like Security Boss was saying, I wanted to agree with her, whereas people are going to go through life and they're going to have experiences. Whether they grow from those experiences or not is completely up to them. And I think we all are saying the same thing. And as we need to bring the love into our relationships, and you may be in a relationship or date someone that's really not for you. And that's for you to discern and be able to, like you said, walk away from it. You were able to walk away from a situation within a 10-month span, where someone else you know may have dealt with the exact type of situation and was in it for 10 years and got children out of it, or blah, 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 so on and so forth. But everyone's experience, like we keep saying, is like there are nuances and caveats, but the general conversation is like, how do we bring love back into it?
Yeah.
And just to add one more thing, because I just want to get this off my head, and I'm going to stay up a little bit. But this younger generation, I'm 34. I work with a lot of women. I work with a lot of young children. I work with all generations, mainly Black women and Black children and all that. But I'm not really too worried about them with technology, because I think it actually is, like you said, making the world smaller and also expanding options. And I actually believe that is a really excellent thing. And I'm agnostic. I believe in a higher power, in God, but I believe in like the pendulum swings both ways. So like you said, we've seen so much that's like, it's so horrible, like divorce and marriage and stuff. So I think we've kind of seen like a lot of the worst of things. And I think that what we're going through now is it going back the other way.
Yeah.
And the pendulum is always swinging back and forth both ways. Right. So even in our lifetime and over time overall, we can make observations and things like that, and we can have opinions about it. But at the end of the day, like, things are always doing this while we're here in this life on this planet. So I'm actually excited for myself in the younger generation, because like you said, the world is becoming smaller and we're beginning to have more options, even with things getting smaller. And I think that's a very good thing. And just us having these conversations, it was mentioned before, is the solution. Yes. Talking here and having these conversations. Some kid who's 15 is probably up watching this late at night, or not, or maybe later. It's in the ether.
I see it next week, right? Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone who's 70 might see it. I mean, we had a sister up here who's in her 50s, who's been married for 30 years, who was able to share an experience.
Good evening.
That she said she had in her 20s, and was able to say like, well, I grew from that. And I'm saying it because I'm sharing it for someone that may be able to know, like, they may want to go bust their windows out their dude's car. I wanted to do that, but he didn't have a car, so I couldn't do that. So I could say, well, that wasn't the right thing anyway.
Bust the windows out the Uber.
I did.
Oh, not the
Uber. It wasn't Uber then. I'm not that young. I remember before Uber. But I'm a mute. I want to stay up a little bit, but I wanted to just come from a perspective of like, I've never been married, and I'm a few years younger than you, Security Boss, but I actually agree with what you were saying, as in the fact of like, that's all. Yeah.